June the 24th, 2024. Guys, you're looking at the Northern Hemisphere, again on our side of the planet, and we're seeing a couple things happen here, and I'd like to look at that. One is this front, it pushed through here early this morning and left us a pretty good rain, just a shower, nothing hard or heavy. It helped knock the dust down and maybe the temperature a little bit, but what it is it's affecting everything. This is actually the second wave of the initial edge of this high pressure dome, and it's causing the heat across the nation. One thing that has happened, it has cleared the Gulf out because the initial or the beginning of the high pressure area started yesterday, really expanding into the Gulf, and all the storms that we were seeing, and we're looking at 2 days here, they were gathering and pushing across Cuba, towards Florida, things like that. But now all of that's being pushed back out by the high pressure area, and it's expected to be here, I think, maybe 110 real feel today. That's why even the small showers that came through at that time was a blessing, because it did give us some cloud cover and relief from it building. Now, what's going to happen tonight in central Mississippi, and you can always go to AccuWeather, something like that, and go right to your location. But it's not going to cool off tonight. It's going to stay in the mid-70s, and that's always a bad sign for the summertime, because the cooling in the night, it makes the mornings a lot better. Then, of course, it's going to heat up early, but if it cools down, it takes it longer to warm up the next day. You understand what I'm saying? So this area that's clearing out and pushing out of the Gulf of Mexico is bringing a lot of heat. Now, what I'm hoping to see is that some of this moisture is getting into the northeast, because you're under extreme heat watches and warnings there again today. We're going to take a look at it on infrared in just a moment, but let me continue pointing out a few things I'm noticing. One is, and I'll pause this just a moment, right there. This storm right here, if you've been watching the channel for over 2 or 3 days, you've noticed we've been watching it come off the African coast. As a matter of fact, we all saw something burst off there. It was like just a wave of maybe a very fast moving storm, whatever, but it came off and overtook everything in this area. Now, a couple of days later, it's setting right here. And as of, I think, the 2 p.m. update today from the National Hurricane Center, they're watching it now. But anyway, there's another system back here that's coming off of Africa, and it's projected to be somewhere in this section of the Atlantic, just north of Dominican Republic and Haiti, right in here on the 4th of July, coming up. What is that? Just, is that on a Tuesday this year, or maybe a Thursday? I can't remember. Anyway, on the 4th, and the weekend will be close to that, you're dealing with another storm here. Now, something they're not watching, and they're not watching this storm, we are. But here, they're not watching it yet, or they're not talking about it in the models. Let's say that. They probably are watching it. Let's put it back into motion right here. Now, with that high pressure setting in, it may do nothing, but that may give Florida a break from some of this flooding. But it would really love to get wound up right in this area. Again, high pressure is dominating, and we'll see that on the colored models that we look at. Now, let's look at the infrared, and before I start it, this goes back to yesterday, and you can see the difference. Again, yesterday the section that they were watching now was here. Now it's getting much closer, and again, that's the one that we saw push into this section a couple of days ago. Let's play it forward. Now, this area right here, that's whatever came off that coast that we're watching. And something was kind of not right about it, and we started watching it at the right time, didn't we, guys? Right? Here we go. And when this stops, we'll look at the National Hurricane Center, and again, I think it's about a 20% chance of development right now because it's just getting started. But it's about to clear the Windward Islands. Once then, if it stays in the center of the Caribbean, it'd be pretty free sailing. And if it gets tangled up in the islands, it will deteriorate the storm somewhat, and it will be a battle between this storm they're watching and the high pressure that we're seeing push everything out of the Gulf. Look at that. Everything just reverses. That's how big a heat dome, guys, that we are going to be under. So make sure you take good care of your pets. You know, let them come inside and make sure they're at least under a fan in the shade or something like that. But plenty of water to drink, everything. Just think about it. Our Huskies are all in here. They can go in and out and go out into the deck, into their dog house that we built back there a couple of years ago. And it's got a little air conditioning in it. And so they kind of do what they want to here. They just spoil like that. And we do sweep up a lot of Husky hair. But we sure care a lot about them. And well, I'm going to get you some pictures up. Maybe this afternoon if I have time. It is now 3:26 p.m. But anyway, here's that storm. Here's the second one back here that will be, again, approaching the U.S. on July the 4th. It should be, if it holds together. And again, we're going into the last frame right there. That's what's happening now, both here, this section up here that I said if it wasn't for the high pressure that's pulling into the Gulf, we may be watching this section. And I'm not saying that it may not come up in the next few days. But again, the Gulf is clearing out, guys, and that's not a good sign in the summer. It tells you there's a big orange blob and red blob of high pressure working off the Atlantic, pushing into our area. Again, I'll play it through one time, and then we're going to go to the National Hurricane Center and see what they're saying about this. And then we'll go to Fox Hurricane down in Miami and take a look at the models that they have on these things. I changed my mind. While we're on this satellite, let's do a couple of close-ups of these areas we're talking about. This is the one that I said we would be watching if it wasn't for this high pressure setting up and pushing everything backwards now. But we will keep an eye on it because there's a lot of warm water energy in that area, and now the atmosphere is heating up also. You can see that it would love to have wrapped up, but I just don't know if it's going to make it into this high pressure zone. Now, quickly in infrared, guys, again, this system, you can see where your storms are. And Florida, you are getting some, looking at the close-up very on the south tip there, and you may have gotten a little here. But this right here gave us some this morning, but it is running into some dry conditions until it gets right to the Gulf. Watch that. And that moist water kicks in with a storm. So you're probably seeing it, guys, along the coast. That'd be a good thing. Anywhere you can get rain in the summer, it's always good. Again, we'll just keep an eye on this disturbance. I don't know if it can make it through this crosswind. Now let's take a look at the coast of Africa. As of 3:34 now p.m. as I'm doing this, the sun has set there. But if you look at this and you see this dust covering here, this is the Saharan dust layer. Blows off the Sahara, and I don't see how they've got much dust left there after eons of this going on. But it inhibits these storms, and notice that the air currents are pushing it into this convergence zone to where these storms are formed, and that will inhibit them. Again, you're mixing sand and water, and it's going to sink back into the ocean, and it takes the moisture out of the storm and the sand out of the air, but it doesn't allow the storms to develop and cool off the oceans in the summertime like they need to be. What you're looking at is here. Notice there's another very fast moving area right here, just like a couple of days ago. And so that may be just the heating of the deserts causing it to suddenly burst out. I don't know what's going on there. There's always a possibility of manipulation. And what you're looking at in the very corner here is South America. And this is the storm that was under development as we watch that first pulse like this come off the African coast. You're seeing the tail end of it here. And let's switch to infrared and take a look at that. Now this gives us a much better idea of what we're seeing. Here's the tail end of the storm they're watching now. And this is what is kind of getting wiped out because of that Saharan sand layer. But this pulse right here is what we saw move off. Again, very quicker than the rest of them. And you got a couple monsters back here. We'll see how this dissipates. But a lot of times when they get on land, off land onto the ocean here, they will either start breaking down or they'll tighten up and make it through this. We have seen in the past years with the Saharan sand, and you're seeing it here, right there, that sometimes it'll take two storms back to back. The front storm will be like a blocking back for a running back and on a sprint outside, and he takes out the interference. And I've seen a front storm come off, tear into the air layer, the Saharan sand layer, excuse me, and it destroyed the storm, but it knocked out a path for the second storm behind it to come have a clear shot. We may see that a few times this year. It's just interesting to see it, how this works. Nature always has a way of finding a way to cool itself, and it's so many relationships between the air, the water, the heat, the sun, that we really cannot fathom the mind of our Father and our Creator. Think about it. But anyway, the things are still heating up in Africa, and we're going to have to watch it. Many experts will tell you, and they're right, that you can count on the big storms after the 1st of August. And usually that's, end of August. We've seen Camille, Katrinas, and things like that. Been very rough. But we watch it all during the season because one can form in the Gulf at any time and be total destruction. Just look at, again, think about Galveston and that Sand Beach Island or whatever, Surfside Island. I think that's what it was. That was completely inundated. Most of the people were wise enough to have their homes on stilts. May have been some car damage and things like that, but there's a lot of images if you look at that. So we watch it year round. Now let's go to the National Hurricane Center. Now, this is, again, at 2:18 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, a couple of hours ago, a little over a couple of hours, and 20% chance of development over the next 7 days. Western Caribbean / southwestern Gulf of Mexico. A westward moving tropical wave located a few hundred miles east-southeast of the Windward Islands is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions appear conducive for slow development once the wave reaches the Western Caribbean late this week. And again, once it clears the Windward Islands, it should be coasting pretty clear until it gets around the Yucatan area. If this high pressure retreats that we're going to look at, you're going to see it bend a little further north. Either way, Mexico City, still you may get a little more, a little break on this drought you're going through. If nothing else, put out, I know you're not going to replenish that aquifer. You'll never see that replenished in any of our lifetimes. It was too big. Too much has been drained out of it. It takes a long time to filter that groundwater out to get back in the aquifer. Even if you started now completely working on any way to stop it. But here's another problem. It's not just the aquifer was drained and that you have, it's going to take a long time to refill it, but it's a concrete jungle. You built all the big skyscrapers, looks like Manhattan, around Wall Street or something, and it's miles and miles and miles of that. And so when you have a concrete jungle, it doesn't go into the soil anymore, guys, to replenish the aquifers. It's drained off into the rivers or the lakes or whatever, the ocean that's at the end of that city, not in your city. And the city happens to be sinking, again, 21 inches a year. And that's because that aquifer's dried and you've built a complete cover. Every city is guilty of it. I'm not talking about just Mexico City, but it's a shame. And many big cities around the world have done the same thing. One thing unique about Mexico City is because the reason you're sinking, again, it was built on an ancient, not an ancient, it was, I guess, the conquistadors. In that period, it was drained to make fields, but you drained a lake there. I'm not talking to the generation now. We have had problems all over the world with past bad decisions, and we still see it today, don't we, guys? Anyway, maybe this will help. And what the point I was getting to was that put out any kind of rain barrels, things like that, because you were very close to day zero on drinking water. You know, put out any kind of rain barrels you can. Now, glass is better. The water will stay much fresher longer, and you will not have the bleaching of the plastics into your water. And then don't let it get in the sunlight. So it's going to be important right now. Generations before you have wasted your water supply. We see it all over the U.S. too. If it hadn't been for this winter, Lake Mead and everything else would be just about dry by now, and they were very close to day zero in a lot of cities. I think 30 or 40 million people would have been affected without moisture coming in there and building those reservoirs back up. But everybody needs to start preserving water. You need to start gathering it. And the demons in many places have said, no, you can't even gather rainwater. It needs to run down the concrete streets into the concrete gutters and mix into all kind of crap and then out into the ocean or rivers. And like they're really doing something positive with that rainwater. And it's going to hurt for you to have a small capture system. It's incredibly, a lot of people say decisions like that are stupid. They're not stupid. A lot of people say, and even Putin is guilty of this, saying that the U.S. has no idea what they're getting into. And this was this morning. By the way, they retaliated for those missiles hitting them last night. They're hitting NATO warehouses, troop locations, and you know who all is involved in NATO and who the main players are. But the big B bombers and I think they're called the U-27 bombers, they are rotating nonstop now. He said that Putin said that he would retaliate on whoever put weapons on them like they did yesterday, kill those folks on the beach. But and he is retaliating. The reason I say that is because NATO troops are getting pushed back, wiped out. Ammo dumps are getting hammered. One place they said the Crimean, not Crimean, but the Ukrainian media is saying that they hit a large mall area. But there were so many after explosions that went on for hours, big explosions, that Russia's saying that it hit a NATO military depot full of missiles. Then Russia hit Crimea. That is why it was in my mind. And they did a lot of damage there to NATO and missile spots. And they have hit many places where troops were held up. And Ukraine has said they don't have any more troops. So whose troops are they? They're people that have made it out of that meat grinder that were military, that said there are no more Ukrainian troops. That's sad. It's sad that the devil does that to a generation of people. That it's worldwide. Anyway, the retaliation is going on, and they're having meetings on the ATACMS missiles that were launched from Ukraine. That one of the big places that was hit was where those missiles came from in Ukraine. And Russia says it was NATO missiles and it was NATO personnel running them. They even mentioned a particular country that I'm not going to mention right now, where both the men and the the ammunition came from. But they're saying these big U-27 bombers may not be the exact number. You've seen them before. They are on a nonstop rotation. And if you think about why would it be contained to Ukraine at this point, is because you don't really want to jump a fence and leave the enemy behind you that can attack you from behind or go further into your territory. And what I saw, and there's, again, War News 247 has come back online after months of being down. And there's videos, you have to have Twitter to look at it or be able to click on it. But that you can see in some of the places where they say a lot of troops were, it's where they would gather, I think, and then go into battle. And one thing, if you watch those videos, notice there are no civilians anywhere in those. It's like a small village as far as our small city. It's not big cities in the ones I saw. But I've noticed that for months in the videos I did get to see that there was no cars on the highways. A lot of the places that are getting hit now, it looks like they've been hit before. Nothing moving on the roads. No cars in sight, and you would see all kind of motion with the kind of explosions. And they sent in one area maybe 5 or 6 of their hypersonics, guys, and even Ukraine says they have no way to deal with that. And when Ukraine says it, it's not Ukraine talking anymore. It's NATO. They have no defense for those particular hypersonics. And there's a video of them hitting one of those centers. What's a shame is the innocent young generations getting wiped out. And you know why. Now let's look at the models. Back to the video. Sorry for that rant or momentary lapse. Guys, this is the Canadian model. And it's a mid-range model as far as days out. It ends on July the 4th. Now, when we start out, we'll stop it right here. That is today. Watch what this high pressure is doing here, and you're going to see the storm they're watching now come through here across the Yucatan and go into Mexico, very close to Texas again, just like some of the other storms. Maybe a little further north, but it depends on this high pressure system. But watch how it reacts when this storm gets closer, and it reminds me of something that our entire planet does as far as our plasmasphere. That's another video. But anyway, it's a protective thing that the Earth does. So, as I play this thing forward, you're going to see that storm move through here, the one that has a 20% chance of development, and the other one that we're watching here move up to this area by the 4th of July. But as this storm starts to pull into the Gulf, you will see this high pressure dive in front of it. That's going to heat up Florida and some of this area here during that time, but it's going to be shunning out possibly the storm from moving into the northern Gulf. All right, let's watch this. Here comes a storm, makes it through the Windward Islands, across the Yucatan, and right into the northern or northeastern section of Mexico. Notice how that high pressure's jumped in here. Here's a second storm that's just coming off the coast of Africa. They're not really talking about, but the Canadian model is picking it up. And it will be setting up here. Notice it does miss the Windward Islands. So it's going to be on a free run if this holds up, if the model stays true. Again, by that time, notice the retreat of the high pressure. Here it is diving into the Gulf, blocking this storm. Then it starts to ease back out, and we'll getting very weak in this area, and here's the center of the high pressure here. So we'll just have to see each day this model will advance. Tomorrow this will go to the 5th and then the 6th. On like that, we'll get a better idea, and it is a long way off, but we are seeing these things strengthen a little early. It may not be August when we see the giant storms, but we will be watching it, guys. And again, excuse the rant, but sometimes it's better to just wrap that envelope up the best way you can, and this information you're looking at is very important. But you better be ready, because if the bear does what they're saying, and if you look at War News 247, I think they very urgently realize they've got to wipe out everything in Ukraine so they can focus somewhere else. They can't have that knife in the back. You understand what I'm saying? And plus, so many nations have put so much munitions alone and personnel into these areas that he's going to be taking out the front line if they're not very careful. And again, I think he's going forward with exactly what he talked about. You do this, I'm going to do that. So again, he's getting the front lines wiped out and a lot of ammunition. Look at the videos. Kind of looks like a mall type warehouse area, but there's continuous explosions on some of those videos for 2 hours. Someone commented that was not a diaper store or a grocery store. They don't blow up with huge explosions for 2 hours, but that's being denied. And so we never know. There's propaganda on both sides, right? That's one of the main things about a war. You never tell the truth. But there's obvious videos that are very clear, very distinct. Again, notice, except for the one that would, the video where, again, ammunition kept, or something kept exploding for hours, that appeared to be more of a metropolitan area, and there was cars around that. I didn't see, but it was all kind of in a big containment gate. It looked like maybe a mall-type warehouse, but there's, again, I think whoever recorded said there was not diapers in that warehouse. And it was kind of being a joke, right? So we're watching it, guys. You watch it, but keep your mind on our Father and on Jesus Christ, because it may be a lot quicker than we realize that we're going to be meeting Him. So you need to have your mind on Him and our Father, and that if you have your mind on Him, it's going to change your life. Just focus on that as many hours as you can. You wake up in the middle of the night every night. Don't let the devil enter your thoughts. He loves darkness. He is just like what does it say? If the good man knew what hour it was in the night that the thief would come, he would not have been robbed. But I've heard, and I have, and I'll hush in just a moment, seen a couple of pieces of information that 3 o'clock, and there's even been songs about 3 a.m. Many of you remember Matchbox 20 and Being Alone, whatever it was about. But anyway, there's a certain hour that it's very negative hour at that time of the night. And a lot of people wake up because it may be God waking them up from their dreams being intercepted or interrupted or corrupted or interfered with. And the information I saw, that they said it's a good time to start praying and thinking about your Father right there. And that evil always has to flee that light when you start talking about the Word of God and praying. Anyway, guys, we're watching this very closely. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.